All right, everybody, welcome to our third day of our YOUniverse speaker series, our fourth day of our YOUniverse digital event. We're just going to go ahead and let folks dial in, give them a couple more minutes before I have the pleasure of kicking off today's session. Wish we had some like interlude music. Is anybody musically inclined on the call?
No.
Ryan, you must be.
That's why when I did theater, I was always I like to direct musicals, but not perform them because I have no voice.
If I had a piano here, I could help you out, but I don't.
Oh, you didn't bring your piano today?
No, I didn't. It's in the back. My dog's working her way through the street in the first 3 minutes, though, so that's going to be great.
All right, we'll talk fast, so, so Penny doesn't have to make it a guest appearance.
I have a feeling she will.
Ryan, what was one of your favorite productions that you ever produced?
Ooh, I mean, the first production I ever directed was a production of Godspell, and it has a soft spot in my heart because you can be so creative with it in the way, you know, the musical brings the parables to life, and it just lends itself to a lot of interpretation about how you can stage it. So that's, I don't know, it was your first is also special too, right? So I'll have to go with Godspell.
I love it.
I love shows that have that creativity option because I think like my friend did one and she does impressions and she's a singer. And so they did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, but they staged it as if it were in Vegas, and she was all of the Vegas acts doing all the impersonations, and it was amazing.
It's phenomenal.
It was so good.
I just saw Rent years ago when I did Godspell and whatever, and it had like inspired me. So there's a very much like a grungy New York like urban theme that we put to spin. But that's the beauty with God, like again with shows like that, is you can like interpret it through different lenses and kind of make it relevant to the audience, or go wild with it.
I love it. All right, so I think we've reached our critical mass of people dialing in, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Welcome to everybody who just joined. For those of you that are just turning into our YOUniverse digital event experience, we have had 3 amazing days chock filled with entertainment and bright B2B minds. At Alyce, we really believe that a new era of business is upon us, one that prioritizes who we are as individuals and what we like to call their hashtag 5 to 9s. And it's really those 5 to 9 interests over somebody's 9 to 5 responsibilities is really what makes them tick. And, we're pretty confident that, to build those personal bonds with your prospects and with your customers and with your partners, the people that you want to do business with, you really must be delivering those personal experiences that are all about being relatable, relevant, and respectful to your audience. So in the spirit of appealing to people's 5 to 9 passions, we actually started this week off with some really fun stuff that prioritized people's interests. We had our very own Stephanie on the line. She and her mother led a beginner's photography session, which was amazing. I walked away with notes on notes. We had ventriloquists, we had chefs, we had mixologists, and really the intent behind the first day of YOUniverse was to celebrate the things that make us us. And then Tuesday onward, we've had the privilege of hosting some brilliant B2B minds, and they shared a little bit more about what personal experience, this concept of PX, really looks like within CS and marketing and sales teams and strategies. And so today, I'm super excited that day 4 of YOUniverse is all about marketing. These are my peeps, so I'm excited to be on the line. And really thinking about in today's session, from Tradeshow to TradeWHOA, how can we actually deliver personal experiences at scale to guests of our events in a way that just leaves them totally awestruck and allows your brand to stand out from the oversaturated digital crowd, so to speak. So Before we dive in and before I get to introduce our panelists today, just a couple of housekeeping items. The first of which, lots of you are really hungry for this content, which makes us very happy. All of the recordings from all sessions of YOUniverse will be available publicly to all on our YOUniverse webpage. And also they'll be emailed out to all registrants of YOUniverse later on this week. So fear not, the content's coming to you soon. Secondly, we are going to, at about 15 minutes left to go, so at about 12:45 today, we're going to open up the chat feature, so feel free to pop your questions and comments in there for our panelists, and we will try to answer as many as we can at the end. And then last but not least, just to make sure the streaming quality is good and everybody's rendering like they should, we've just disabled chat video, and microphones for the time being. So just nothing's broken. That's the way it's supposed to be. So now let's get to know each other a bit better in the spirit of really getting to know each other's 5 to 9s. For those who don't know me, my name is Nina Butler. I lead our demand generation team here at Alyce. And when I am not taking care of those 9 to 5 responsibilities on behalf of the company, I am a super aunt, or at least I think I am. I have 2 very cute nieces and nephews that live in Colorado, and normally I get to spend a ton of time with them, and I don't right now, so it makes me a little sad, but that's why you have FaceTime, I guess. I was a singer in my past life. I'm super, super passionate about musical arts, and that's why I'm actually really excited. Ryan and Stephanie are on the line today. I don't know if folks heard before we kicked things off, we were talking about our favorite shows. And also, I've never met a piece of cheese I didn't like. I love cheese. If you have cheese recommendations, please find me on LinkedIn. Please tell me where to get them, what they are, and why I'll like them. And I guarantee that I'll write you back. So it's a little bit more about me, but let's get down to some even better folks. First, we have the Nick Bennett, who leads the field marketing team over at Clari. So Nick, why don't you share a little bit about your 5 to 9 passions? I mean, you used to be a baseball phenom, and I think folks would like to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I actually am a huge baseball fan. I actually co-founded an 18+ baseball league that is going into year 6, super strong, made up of 18+-year-old kids all across Massachusetts, nonprofit, takes up a ton of time. And I actually still play in 3 leagues myself. So super competitive, love to do it. And I also like to think that I'm super dad to an amazing 2-year-old little girl. Her name's Reese. If you see my LinkedIn, I try to put her up there to promote this because cute babies always get more clicks. But yeah, super pumped to be here. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. And yes, I can attest, Reese is maybe the cutest 2-year-old I've ever seen. She's just a delight. And I've never even got to meet her in person, so I'm sure she's even better when I can see her face to face. All right, so moving on, we have our friend Ryan Brown, who leads the brand strategy team over at Ceros. But Ryan, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about what makes you tick in your 5 to 9?
Yeah, I mean, adventure seeker and probably experience junkie in the terms of just like, I view life as like one big adventure. What's been really interesting is I feel like the past few months have allowed me to like get even more intentional about how I can like find like small adventures. And like, I used to like have to go to Disney World or see an epic Broadway production or a concert to like get my fill of experience. But like, it's been really cool over these past few months to just get in touch with like experiences like in my own sort of 5 to 9 around the house and stuff. So, but that's for me, that's what really motivates me. And I've been fortunate that in my career, I've been able to sort of take that sense of going on adventures, creating adventures, hopefully, you know, being able to create experiences for the companies and brands that I've worked with in the past. So I just try to embody that through everything that I do.
I love that. And so for the adventure seekers that are also on the line, what might you recommend they can do as a modified adventure now that they're home, or one that you found a lot of joy doing?
You know, not to get like, for me, it's been, honestly, it's been a spiritual journey, and it's like I much needed this. So for me, it was just kind of waking up to this fact that there's life in the world around us can be quite beautiful, not to get overly spiritual, but this whole things for me, which I've just found a new level of joy in, is just like going for a walk. And I do one of 3 things. I either am listening to an inspiring podcast, like my favorite playlist, or I take no music, no podcast, and I just like marvel that like there's like birds and all this crazy stuff chirping. So that's been for me like quite exciting.
I totally feel you. I'm usually the person that's like plugged into the podcast or on my phone trying to Slack people. But now when I take a couple minutes to be outside, obviously safety precautions all around, I don't listen to anything. I just take in the world around me. So I'm with you on that. All right, so up next we have my friend Stephanie. Like I'd mentioned, Stephanie is a photography phenom herself. She led a really, really cool session earlier this week at our 5 to 9 Fest. But when she is not being hyper creative, she leads the community and events team over at Impact. So Stephanie, welcome. Why don't you share a little bit more about yourself beyond your photography prowess that you and your mom have kind of cultivated?
Yeah, so thanks for having us Monday. It was super fun. Aside from photography, I actually just love food. I love baking. I picnic like it's my job. I was actually in a picnic competition last year, so hopefully again this year. And my life motto is, why have gender roles when you can have pizza rolls?
I totally love it. So I've had the privilege of actually seeing some photos of your picnic competition, but for people who might be less familiar, what exactly is a picnic competition?
Yeah, so there's I live in Chicago, and there's a place just outside of Chicago that does symphony concerts, and actually they do a variety of shows in the summer. And I'm sure you have something local to you that does this. If not, Friends in a Park work. But they give you a set of criteria, like a theme, and they're going to judge you by your use of space, obviously the food. So we set up a whole picnic table display, trying to keep within a certain amount of space, keep within a theme. For example, the one we did was all about the piece that was being played that night, which was Make Our Garden Grow. And so all of the ingredients of our picnic were sourced from local friends and neighbors' backyard gardens. And we had a lot of flowers, and I just love picnics. They're so fun.
That's amazing. Like, the more you know, there's this whole like subculture I didn't even know about, which are these like avid picnic goers. So thank you for bringing that into my universe. All right, last but certainly not least, our dear friend Shannon over at Marketo. So Shannon is a senior field marketing strategist over at Marketo. She is also a proud new puppy mama. But in addition to that, Shannon, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about your 5 to 9?
Sure. So thanks for having me, Nina. Big things that I do in my 5 to 9. One is traveling before everything happened. In recent years, I've set a goal for myself to travel to 3 new places a year, which up until this year, I've accomplished that. I am a big fan of New England sports teams, similar to Nick. Go Patriots. I love Dave Matthews. Try and see them in concert at least once a year. Hopefully I get to go to the concerts in July that they have. And like you mentioned, Nina, I am a super dog mom. I have a 10-year-old Cairn Terrier by the name of Charlie, and we have a 10-week-old Aussie that's named Cora. And she is so adorable.
I can attest, she too is adorable. She and Reese, like, I don't know, just like distract me all day with their cuteness. So Shannon, what of all the places you've been doing 3 new ones a year, what have been your favorite up until recently?
So we did Italy and Greece, which is amazing. But my favorite's Ireland. I absolutely loved it. We did Dublin. We also did Galway. We were only there for a little bit of time, but I 100% want to go back. It was beautiful.
I love it. Did you get a little Cliffs of Moher action or
I did. Quite? Yep.
Awesome.
That was on the bucket list. So I had to make it happen.
Love it. Did you get any like fun photos of you like falling off the edge? And
no, I'm not like an adventure seeker like Ryan, but I did get some cool pictures.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's probably safer anyway, so we're glad.
Yes.
All right, so thank you guys all again for joining me today to talk about from taking your trade shows to trade woes. I know at least one thing that all of you have in common right now, that in the past 8 weeks, your worlds have been flipped completely upside down. Being field marketers, event marketers, revenue leaders, I mean, that's really the meat and potatoes of a lot of folks' go-to-market strategies. I mean, I know here at Alyce, one of the best ways we have to activate our brand that's all about trying to be personal is by doing it in person, right? So talk to me, I'd love to hear from each of you, you know, what would you say is the biggest key learning that you have had over these past 8 weeks, outside of the fact of like, now you just have to pivot and try to make the best of the scenario? Shannon, feel free to kick us off.
I was gonna say I can go first.
Great stuff over there.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, I mean, virtual events can be done, and they can be done in a tight timeline, and they can have a really amazing impact on pipeline. And we look at doing events on a few different scales where we will do like very VIP type of experiences, but also content. And our amazing team has done a phenomenal job with pivoting everything. And we have seen the benefits of being able to switch our strategy pretty quickly. So that's one thing, is it can be done, and pipeline can have an amazing impact by hosting virtual events. The other thing I wanted to mention is just understanding how to navigate from in-person to virtual. And by that, I mean like the logistics piece of it is like, you're so focused on like, I need to find a venue and I need to make sure like the F&B is ordered and all that stuff. And then having to completely pivot to virtual and understanding, okay, like I need to set up a conference and I need to make sure that people are getting ingredients for certain events and stuff like that. So that definitely has been a learning experience. But overall, the virtual events have had a great impact on our pipeline.
Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like without fail, just be confident that you can pivot, and then also just making sure you're really leaning into your strengths on your team to help you kind of get there. Nick, I know that you guys have actually done something really interesting at Clari. You've made the decision to move totally virtual for the foreseeable future. So as a result of that, you know, tell me what you have really learned from your audience and your own internal team over the past several weeks to come to that decision.
Yeah, we were, you know, we had a lot of in-person events planned, and we had a really solid projection of what we would get back from it. And this was probably the fastest that I've ever had to pivot before. And I think that's part of what's great working for a startup. It's like, you can do that and have the creative juices to be able to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And today we've decided that through the end of January, we're not doing any conferences or any in-person events. And what we've learned is that people really enjoy the roundtable discussions. And if you make it personal and something that people are interested in times like today, they'll join. We do a ton of them, and the feedback that they've given us from those have been really valuable. And we're in the process of building a community aspect of it as well. And I think it kind of all goes together. And that's one of the biggest things that we've learned, that people are craving valuable discussion that they can use in their everyday lives now.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, our ability to just share information freely is now at an all-time high, and really encouraged in a way that maybe like a former, I don't know, gated solution didn't really allow us to. Ryan, over at Ceros, have you got, I mean, event experiences are your bread and butter. So how have you guys, you know, taken your key learnings and tried to optimize them to create really lasting impressions on your would have been in-person audiences?
Yeah, I mean, we're still figuring it out. I mean, when you think of what have we learned, and I can answer it first personally, is like, you know, when you plan events for a while, you try to think for anything that can go wrong. And like, this is like nothing people could have planned for. So, I mean, not to keep my spiritual journey thread going on, but this ability of like, you know, recognizing that we don't have a lot of control over things that, you know, like we can only control so much, and how do you just kind of roll with that? The other thing that I have learned personally, and I'm going to spin this to a positive, but like my bias towards digital events and virtual events experiences, that they are, in comparison to live events, the experience for me is a little bit garbage at this point in time. What I will say is, I think that's still true, but I think what I see a lot of people doing, and I imagine a lot of us on this call, is like waking up to the fact that like, okay, we're forced into doing this. But I think the thing that still triumphs and wins, and what I'm so excited about the conversation of this whole event that you guys are talking about, is it's getting to the core of it, is like what makes us human, and like connecting in person was one that was just, I think, made events so powerful. And what I see is like in the way that you guys have designed this events and the way that other people are approaching it, I think the insight that you still want to be able to connect with people on that level. And so for me, the three things that still emerged from live events that in person that I think now that we're taking over into the virtual space is like three things. Is one, like creativity. I think creativity is always just like awakens people's imagination. Two, a level of consideration. So whether that be for what people are going through and what they want to get out of it. And the last thing is just care. And it's a little bit harder in the virtual sense, but how do you just like provide a level of care and support for people? So holistically, that's what we're looking at it. I know right now we're in the process of trying to reimagine a customer event that we've done in person across different markets, and we've taken a lot of time to really try to pick the right platform, the right thing. So that's where we're at. We're just trying to be super intentional. What can we learn from personal, live events and apply that to the digital space? Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with you. And I love that word care that you just said, because I think when you are fortunate to cultivate a relationship in person, like the care is there on the surface and you don't have to work as hard to establish it. But when you have a piece of technology sitting in between you, how do you actually replicate that in an authentic way that somebody, can kind of take it for what it is? And Stephanie, I know that you guys over at Impact, you completely transformed your would have been April event into a digital experience. So, talk to me a little bit about what your key learning from that whole experience was, and what are some things you might have underestimated the importance or impact of?
Yeah, so pun intended. Seriously though, we pivoted our event in 3.5 weeks from an in-person event to a full day 3-track virtual event with over 30 speakers. While it can be done, like Shannon said, I don't recommend doing it in a 3-4 week period, but we did. And I think I've learned so much, but I think there are two things that really stand out. One, Nick kind of alluded to, is that community aspect. I am the director of community and events for a reason, and I run a couple of online and in-person communities. And we've seen people flocking to our online community that already had over 6,000 people, because people are turning to these communities more than ever. They need people to bounce ideas off of. They're not in office with coworkers to just turn around and ask a question. And so the communities are becoming even more important and better for it. And if you create an event, you want to allow people to connect and network and build a profile and connect with each other during it. But you also need to give them a way to keep that going after the event. That's something that we hadn't even connected for our virtual event in April. And we knew that people were logged in and chatting with each other, and we kind of gave them a way to talk after. But when the event ended, those profiles that they were logged in with died with the end of the event. And so we really want to figure out a way to nail that moving forward, and got a couple cool solutions in the works. Mm-hmm. And I think the other one that really stands out as a key takeaway to me is that when you do virtual events, whether it's live like this or you're asking people to pre-record content, people need a little bit of video and on-camera training, whether it's about proper lighting, how to get your audio right, how to not have your hands like right here or your camera like this. You'll underestimate, like, even the best keynote speaker who's so good on stage and they're so captivating, sometimes either freezes in front of a camera, or they need a co-host to play off of, or even just they haven't experienced recording or presenting without an audience to give them that energy back. And so finding ways to help them do that. We did a couple of pre-recorded sessions where we had a group of 6 people sit in as the studio audience. We offered co-hosts to help record. And then in our live sessions, we had someone who's very comfortable on video, but also we offered video training services and on-camera performance workshops for our speakers and through our company. And I think that really elevated the event, because you didn't get those ums and uhs. You didn't get even just having your speakers be comfortable with the software that they're using. A lot of speakers are being asked to do multiple events in different platforms. Just doing a training like you guys did with us, saying we will be on Zoom and you won't have to worry about dealing with the audience questions. Really just preparing people to be confident on camera virtually really helps level up the content.
I love that. I think, right now, as marketers, it's easy to get tunnel vision, of course, right? You're always thinking customer first or attendee first, and you actually have to widen up your blinders a bit and consider the community, right? The entire event community, and that's including hosts and panelists and session leaders, and making sure that everybody is being, considered when you're trying to create a personal moment with them.
Yeah, we even invited our speakers to chat in the discussion thread along with our attendees during the pre-recorded sessions. They recorded brand new content for us, but to make sure it worked tech-wise, we did the pre-recording. We did have them there live day of the event engaging with the people attending, and everyone really liked that.
I love that. And so, Nick, you said something interesting earlier that I want to come back to. You had mentioned taking some or learning some things about your audience that you are now being forced to ask more questions around. And one of those is saying that your attendees actually really like the format of the round table. It's really intimate. They feel like they can better connect with each other, and with Clari as the host company. Has anybody else on the line had a moment in which they've had to learn something, a preference change in their audience, and how have you tried to adapt your event strategy to execute on that?
Well, we had one, much as I just said, we loved that chat, having the ability for people to connect, having the speakers there. We had just as many people say it was distracting. And we know now that we need to give people a way to either minimize or hide that chat in case they really just want to focus in on the speaker. So we were all excited about the level of connectivity we were offering and didn't even consider that some people would find it distracting.
Sure, that's a great point. I think when we're together, there's a lot more areas for people to self-select into and out of. And I mean, it's as simple as like just get up out of the room and go to the water cooler, right? But how do you help simulate that in a digital event experience so people feel really, the entire experience is really inclusive depending on your preferences? Nick, was that roundtable strategy something that you all had even considered prior to now, or was that really a forcing function?
Yeah, that was really a forcing function, you know, and we tried to make it very, like, we cap it at about 15 to 20 people that come into this because we want to make it engaging. We want people to ask questions. And if you have, you know, something where there's 60, 70 people on, that people can multitask, they can tune out, they can not really engage as much as you might want them to. So that's why we've made them very intimate. We've been doing them twice a week. And we're now trying to even personalize it a bit more where we're calling it kind of like an after dark session. And so basically we're sending our attendees alcohol or something of their choosing to make it more of like a, you know, an in-person event when you are networking. You know, you're chatting over drinks, it's more of a discussion, and that's gone over extremely well. And it's like, you know, people, you would think people would be afraid to give their home address for things like this, but we've seen a huge amount of success in people saying, yeah, you know, I'd love to be a part of this. And then it forms more of a community aspect. And it's gone over extremely well.
That's such a good point about the addresses too. I think we found that as much as people are willing to share a little bit more information to improve the experience, I think people have also started to care a little bit more about security online. And I know when we have people registering for things, if we're asking for their address or asking for their phone number, we want to be really careful about saying who we will or won't share it with. There's just, everyone's online so much for everything right now, and we really have to be serious about security if we want people to, our audience, to trust us with their data. And the more we ask for, the more we have to be aware of that.
And that comment, Stephanie, really makes me think about, you know, I kind of teed this up earlier talking about the 3 R's of incorporating into your event strategy, delivering experiences that are relevant, relatable, and respectful. And to me, that's really the respect aspect, really understanding and being considerate of your audience members that might be in even more of a heightened state than they normally are when they get to come to your annual event and see old friends. So, and Stephanie or anybody else, what are other ways that you've tried to bake that respectfulness into these new digital experiences so people feel really safe and like you really care? Ryan, that was a word you mentioned earlier.
I can chime in here. I know with a lot of our VIP events and even our content events, we're very cautious of the time zones that we're doing our events in. I think our in-person or anyone's in-person strategy, if you were going to be doing a dinner event, you could look to do it at 6 or 7 in person. But now that we're virtual, and people may have things to do around the house, or they have to cook dinner for their kids or put their kids to bed, you definitely have to be mindful of that. So we've actually shifted our event strategy up a little bit, where we'll start our events maybe later in the afternoon. That way it gives the attendees some time to do things that they need to do in their everyday life, in addition to coming to our events. So that's one thing that has been a big shift for us, but it's definitely paid off.
Yeah, I think similar for us. So we've continued doing webinars and stuff as we've always done. But in terms of our first virtual event, we haven't done one since this happened yet. We're planning one for our customers, as I mentioned, next month. And, we've been super intentional because we set a really high bar for the experiences that we have in person. And so it felt like, it would be very much a departure from our brand not to take that same level of like care and respect. And so we've it's challenging. And we at least in this first go at it, we've sort of optimized a bit for the East Coast and West Coast, and we're running this program which we've explored different like technology that will allow us to throw people into breakouts. We have like hands-on workshops usually in person, but how do we translate that and make sure we have staff to jump into those rooms and do it with people? So yeah, from having different start times, I do, as I say this, I recognize we actually have some international customers that we'll have to solve for as well. But in our first sort of step into this, we took a moment to really try to get our head wrapped around it, and now we're really trying to just ramp up how we can further create these moments, these experiences for people in the virtual space.
Yeah. Ryan, what are some examples of things that you think Ceros has really come to nail in person, and how, even if you don't have the answers quite yet because the event hasn't happened, like how are you thinking about digitizing them or optimizing them now for a digital landscape?
I think that I had a personal kind of realization, and one, I mean, I guess this is sort of in Ceros' DNA. We've really been scrappy. So if you have attended any of our events, you would think we spent a lot more money on it than we did. Though we would still make a decent investment in that. And back when I was at HubSpot in a while, and I helped launch the Inbound in the early days. And same thing too. It was, we made a big investment in it, but we always were probably scrappier than what people expected. And I think for me, I used to have this belief that like you had to have a completely immersive thing. And those are great. Like I mentioned Disney and all that stuff, but I had not too long ago, and I'll bring this back to answer your question, but an experience where I had this like just really powerful, intimate dinner experience that someone hosted for 15 people. And it was all just around being able to connect around an idea and get to know each other and gratitude. And there's something about that is just so powerful that, while there is a place for like immersing Disney World type stuff and even events who can do that thoughtfully, I think adds a lot of value if it's economics work out right for your business or for your brand. So I think the things that we've learned from Ceros to kind of apply it there, it's a little bit hard. We're trying to find ways to do this. So how do you immerse people like outside of events? Like the Ceros platform, what we do is all about how you can use animation and interactivity in the virtual space to get people like brought in. So I think what we're doing in subtle ways is whether that be some video or animations or music, just little moments to still create that environment, but it's almost going back to the basics, right? How do you zero in on that sort of human connection? And so being really thoughtful and intentional when we do these breakouts or workshops, and as we create moments for people to network, can we still kind of cut to the core of the things that we think made our events really special, which was the ability to sort of have those connections or to have quote unquote an experience that you don't normally get to have.
Yep. I think that makes me think a lot about the relatability of your event experience. I mean, I think to your point, these things don't have to be overly produced and tons of monetary investment, but rather prioritize the interests of your attendees and create an experience around that shared interest. And people are going to view that with so much more value than they might even like just going to a total rock show, right?
For me, for me, it's just huge. If you can cut to someone's like core, like their heart, I think we are much more emotional beings than we are thinking beings. And as much as I love going to an event to like expand my mind and get new ideas, which is there, it's the ideas or the connections or the moments that like touch you inside, that like fill you up, that you remember like super strong. Like a lot of times I go to events, hear a bunch of great new ideas, but it's those moments that make me like feel super human, connected, or there, that like lasts with me much longer. And so I think that's the really fun part of figuring out how do you bring that element to your event, because if you pair that then with your business objectives, you pair that with like really great education, it just it like unlocks it in a beautiful way. So
yeah, 100%. Nick or Stephanie or Shannon, have you guys had experience of trying to really try to cultivate what Ryan's talking about when it comes to creating, true personal connection for things that people really feel like, wow, that one moment made the event for me?
Yes.
You go, Shannon.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a lot of our VIP events, we are trying to understand what is interesting or of interest to our attendees. And we like to do a lot of our VIP events around like local celebrities or local hosts. So having that connection, that regional connection, I think is huge, because they'll be like, hey, like I've been to that person's restaurant, or I've bought something from that company before, I think is really big because they can make that connection. So that's the first thing. And also just understanding like what the audience is craving. I know a lot of people are craving interaction and engagement. So making sure the experiences are just that. They're interactive, they're engaging. So a lot of these baking or cooking or even wine or beer tastings, it allows the audience to not only engage, but learn something. So that's been really big for us.
Yeah, I love the elements like that. I know we opened our virtual event with a morning wellness session that included like stretches you can do at your desk and some meditation. And we definitely got some pushback at first, like this is a business event, do we even need that? But I think what it does is it helps set the stage for you are attending an event. Yes, it's virtual, but you're not just tuning into a webinar that you're going to play on the side while you answer some emails. And if you approach it that way and you encourage people to truly attend, get a pet sitter, like I was saying earlier, people love to watch your dog for an hour, or truly tell your team, like, I'm going to be offline today, I'm attending this event, and really choose to be there. You're going to get the most out of it that way. And I think those other additional experiences that either bookend or break up your event help remind people to get in that mindset. You are attending an event here as person, and then giving people ways to connect throughout the day in that way. We opened our event with a live session, closed it with a live session, and had one in the middle of the day. And that was especially cool because we had people chatting alongside all day and saying things in response to our polls or the sessions or questions we asked. We actually took a couple screenshots, and then after the morning session, when most people joined us live in the afternoon, we had screenshots of those chats and we shouted people out who were watching. And it was really cool because people felt like we really were looking and listening to what they were saying. And we actually had one person say, thank you so much. This is the first time in weeks I haven't felt lonely. And it was so cool to see, like, that was our moment. I know, right? And then also, like, that proved to me that we achieved something. You weren't just watching a webinar as an individual watching another individual. You were participating in a community and in an event. So if you can achieve that, then you're good.
Yeah, and I would. Oops, sorry. I was just going to say, I would just add to that. I think at the end of the day, people connect with people, and if you can relate to the other person, regardless of what content is being delivered, that's going to be an impactful part of it as well.
Yeah, and something that I think really helped us do that is we had Marcus Sheridan, who's a really well-known speaker in our industry, doing these live sessions, but I was there as his co-host and moderator. And something he said that really stuck with me was, yes, I'm there to field the questions or do what Nina's doing now, keep the conversation going, but also I am a representation and extension of our audience. And so a lot of times our audience sees themselves in me. They see themselves in the co-host. If Marcus says something funny and I laugh, they feel free to laugh too. So having that co-host for your main speaker to bounce ideas off of, to help moderate the session, but also to be that representation and extension of your audience helps them feel connected.
And I think, Shannon, you and Stephanie just brought up some really good points there around, I love that starting the day with the health and wellness session. I mean, and that allows somebody to bring them full selves into your event experience. And it gives them permission to say, hey, I'm in this today, and I'm going to let myself be as immersed as I could be if I were there in person. For Nick and Ryan, I mean, Ryan, as you're thinking about your future show too, what are other ways that you're thinking about engineering moments to really capitalize on people's 5 to 9 interests? So, Shannon, you had a great example of, doing cooking classes or things that really kind of pique people's personal interests. What are other ways that you're looking to engineer moments like that in your events, even your roundtables, Nick?
Yeah, so it's funny. So kind of with Shannon as well. So our CMO is a huge cook. So, and he was just like, I will literally cook in front of anyone. So that's another thing that we're looking at. We're exploring a lot of different options right now. And it's just like, I mean, obviously it's going to be virtual for the foreseeable future. So it's like, what can you do to stand out in a sea of everyone doing the same thing? And that's what I think we're all trying to figure out right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, our big event, right? What we were trying to do this year was like targeting 1,000 people here. Inbound was a big one I did too. It's hard. You can't can't do something for everyone, which is important. But I think the key thing is what I love about, personal experience and PX and stuff is like, it just reminds us again that we're human. I know that's like the thread we talked about and the connection and stuff. And I think as you mentioned, Nina, like how do you engineer in those moments for people to experience their 5 to 9? I think it's really important that you engineer those moments for people to have those 5 to 9 experiences, right? Moments that make you feel human. Like, and many, again, I'm lucky that like my 5 to 9 and 9 to 5 blur together. It's like all like stuff I get to do, but I recognize that's not true for everyone, not true for everyone necessarily coming to our events. And so how do you make sure you engineer those moments? I think that's the key thing to it. One of the things that we were thinking to do with our event last year and we want to do this year was, try to give people an opportunity, because sometimes when you go to these events, it can be intimidating. So I love events, I love experiences, but I'm also a little bit introverted when it comes to like networking people and how you can help them break the ice, whether it be over common interests or passions or whatnot. So we were trying to find a way to scale. We had a creative spark that we were going to use for this year's event, which was like the art and science as an overarching theme. And we were sort of, creating fun ways to kind of look at like left brain to right brain of people that kind of sit in the middle, and allow people from a fun quiz at the very beginning to fill that out, and then kind of put them into like, each of them would have been like a really cool persona. So wherever you fell in our quiz would have give you something there, but each person would have a different entrance to go through when they arrive at the event, and an opportunity to sort of start conversations with people that are already a little bit like-minded. Even our whole community is like-minded, but you get this little bit of a, lack of a better word, a tribe, and help you kind of move through the event and help you connect with people that maybe are in a different tribe, just to facilitate that sort of icebreaker and do things that might have leaned in a little bit more to whatever tribe you're in, and create some moments that would have been really personal that way as well.
I'm like totally obsessed with that idea. I hope this happens at some point in time.
Hopefully next year, hopefully 2021.
Is on there. But I think the really, what I read between the lines on that, Ryan, is that you, although it's a persona-based exercise, you're really trying to get the heart of what makes people tick, and you're not segmenting your attendees based on a bunch of data points. I mean, so often, right, it's like, all right, the CMOs are gonna go into this lunch session, and then your VPs of demand gen are gonna go here. It's like, well, no. Like, your tribe is gonna have lunch together, and then here's gonna be another opportunity for you to learn more about, other folks. And I love that, and I think it really gets at the point of personal experience, which is like the step down from the data. It's like the data helps us figure out, signals from our audience, but like you really need to take it the step down to truly facilitate that connection. I love it. So I kind of one last question for you, and then hopefully we have some roll through the chat, but given the past several weeks, where do each of you think that the trade show and the event marketing space is going to evolve to? Obviously, like assuming 6 months from now, or hopefully we're out the other side of this, like what lasting impressions do you think the now is going to leave on the future?
I think there's going to be a hybrid between in-person and virtual moving forward. I think that you're going to have companies trying to build out their strategy around both type of events and figure out where they can fill the gaps. But I do think virtual events are here to stay. And I think they're going to continue to evolve over the coming months and coming years. But I think you're going to see a hybrid between in-person and virtual.
Yeah, I think that in addition to just learning a lot about bandwidth, which is something we're all going to do, I think that we'll start to see a lot more regional events too, since we know now that we don't necessarily have to travel or fly or pay for a hotel to get an experience. That's going to be a really next level elevated experience. If you actually fly to something and book a hotel, you're going to expect something really amazing. So it's going to up the standards for those big events. And then the regional ones, I think we're going to see a lot more trade shows where I know like lots of different companies do road shows where they go from city to city, essentially presenting the same content, sometimes with speakers local to that area. And it's something a little bit easier to get to. Maybe it's only one day. I think we'll see a lot more of those as we start to inch our way back toward in-person events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think kind of everything is going to be virtual for the foreseeable future. And if you break down the ROI of a virtual event that's basically almost at a cost of zero versus something in person, I mean, what board and executive team is going to say no to that? They're going to say, we want more. And so you have to kind of balance it and be able to do both. And we've never done a ton of trade shows to begin with, but we do a couple of them, and I think we'll still continue to do those, but then add in the virtual as well as kind of like roadshow type things.
I'm pretty excited because prior to all of this, I feel like I've been trying to get on a soapbox for a long time saying, hey, there's this huge gap in the way that we think experientially and the way that we craft our in-person events and experiences. And then when we bring events or our brand and stuff online, we're not quite thinking of how might this impact people, how might they feel about it. We're just trying to like jam information at them. So I think what will happen, or I'm optimistic, is that we will realize now when all we really have is virtual and digital experiences, that we need to be thinking about how do we connect and engage with people that way and start leveraging the ability, you know, when we're still doing stuff virtually, you still, as I think Stephanie was talking about earlier, you can still engage with them, you can still create interactions, you can still immerse them, you can still do these things. And I love how people are getting creative with that and finding ways to resonate in new ways. And the question that I have is, I realize I've always started, even though I talk about this gap, I've always gone from IRL and figure out how do I bring the URL or the digital experience along with it. I hope that there'll be some people out here who start ideas digitally first and then maybe translate to physical and in real life later. Like, you don't really see things going that direction, but I'm so excited to see if that's something that happens after this period.
That's an awesome point. And I think, you know, I completely agree with all you. I think it's going to elevate the stakes. And I think there's going to be even more consideration for our audiences at the end of all this. And I also think that we're going to think about the ways we structure our teams and resources differently. I mean, I know, Nick, you over at Clari, you've already thought about ways to redeploy your field marketing team to, you know, drive more continued success and growth, especially within your existing customer base too, which I think we're going to be a lot more invested in, you know, retaining our top customers there. We did have a chat come in that I think is a good one. And some of you, I think Stephanie too, you'll really be an expert here, but how do you replicate the networking aspect of live events virtually? I know that there's some platforms out there that help kind of facilitate that meet cute, that organic meetup, if you will, but anybody feel free to take that one, how to create those networking moments.
Something that I've seen recently, so in addition to hosting our full day virtual event, I also just dove in and attended like 5 other virtual events already, or parts of them, to see how they ran it, what platforms they used. And it's cool to see everyone experimenting. I don't know if anyone's really nailed it yet that I've seen, but there are certain ways. I think a big part of it depends on your audience and their comfort online and their familiarity with certain tools. I attended an event that had a ton of the community on Slack. They actually asked everyone to join Slack in order to get the links to join the sessions. And so you kind of had to be on Slack to do it. And it worked really well in that sense, because everyone attending was pretty comfortable with Slack. We were able to keep the conversations going well after the event, divided up by topics using the channels. That was great. But if you did that same approach in an industry where people aren't as familiar with a tool like that, I think it would be really hard. I just attended an event yesterday, and they had kind of we were just joking earlier, like a chat roulette networking situation where you could go in during the coffee break, grab your coffee, sit down, and you'd be randomly matched with someone to chat with and network with on video. You had a 2-minute timer, and after 2 minutes, it would randomly shuffle you and match you with someone else. So there's lots of cool things out there, and I can't wait to see. I feel like there's a new tool popping up every day. I can't wait to see kind of what we're capable of a few months from now.
Another awesome question came in. So Umar says, what are the biggest challenges to market virtual events compared to your live events? I love this question for so many reasons, but feel free for anybody to take that one.
Yeah, so I'll kick it off. So the way that we've been marketing these roundtables, like I said, we keep them pretty intimate. We let about 40 to 50 people register for and expect about a 40 to 50% drop off. But we've totally underestimated the power of social posts before this. And when you are promoting your event on social, you need to be able to tell a story. Not, I see a lot of people that will just kind of share a webinar link or share something, but there's no story or narrative that kind of catches my eye and says why I should join that. And if you can kind of nail that piece of it, and then follow up, okay, here's the actual event, we've seen a tremendous growth in registrations and people that weren't even in our database. So they're all net new from that. So I think that would be a big addition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's interesting, at least from our experience, we've like seen such an increase. I mean, it's not actually a shocker that we've seen a big increase in our webinars and events and stuff that we've done. And the barrier to entry is not as hard when you're trying to get someone to pay several hundreds to $1,000 for a ticket versus a free thing. The challenge, I think, on the flip side is really, you know, there's a lot of marketing opportunities if you can take advantage of it. I'm curious to see two thoughts. One, I'm curious to see if we had a saturation point. There are so many webinars and virtual events now, so that's going to be a new challenge. Is just the first, I can't say that word. I say just the scale of the number of these events that are happening. How will we be able to stand out? It's kind of like the same problem I see in, like, you know, regular marketing, right? You've got so many ebooks and white papers and offers, and you're just, oh my God, what do I want to do? So I'm wondering if we'll hit a saturation point where we need to stand out. And I think that's kind of what Nick gets to. It's like, if you can tell the journey and bring to life the experience that people are gonna have. That was always the same thing with like physical events. It's like, I'm gonna spend this money, what value am I gonna get out of this? And part of, I think, good event marketing is not just, you know, it's bringing the experience with the value and telling that in a compelling way. I think you need to think that same way with your virtual experiences in particular, as they're here to stay for a while. So I think that's going to be, for me, the biggest takeaway is figuring out how to do that. And I can't imagine we're going to continue at gangbusters, keep growing more events. Like at some point, people are going to be like, oh my God, I've done so many virtual events. I think someone talked about Zoom fatigue in one of the questions that came in. So
I think it was Dharmesh at HubSpot, actually, at Inbound, was saying, like, we don't have a saturation problem. We have a diversification problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Ryan, to that point, somebody asked a great question there about any recommendations you guys have on pacing. So obviously Zoom fatigue is real. I mean, you get exhausted going to in-person events, but it's like this like really like romantic feeling, because you're just like, oh, I've done so much today. But like when you're sitting at your computer all day, it's not so romantic. So what do you guys recommend in terms of event pacing, timing, how spread out or condensed should stuff be? Any recommendations there?
I can start. We haven't done like a full-blown like full day event before, but the events we are doing, we're trying to keep to an hour and a half, hour and 15, hour and a half, because you may start to lose some people if you hit that 2-hour mark. And I always try, or our team always tries to think, okay, if this was an in-person event, how long would it have been? What is kind of the agenda? So we try and keep it to an hour and a half. That has worked out pretty well.
Yeah, we did our full day event, but it was not one Zoom that people sat in all day. Someone said recently, I think it was Brian Fanzo, that like an hour in Zoom land feels like 4 hours in real life. And it's so true. Meanwhile, like while this flew by, in my opinion, it does start to wear on you. And so we actually had a variety of sessions throughout the day, and they were only 25 minutes long. And we felt like that was the right amount of time to really not only keep people's attention, but force our presenters to deliver information in a concise and engaging way. We had a couple that were twice that were 50 minutes long. And I think in the future, we'll offer some more or longer breaks, but still giving people the opportunity to have that networking opportunity or the coffee break or something to do so that we keep them engaged, so that it doesn't feel like that's just the time to go check your email. Mm-hmm. Having activities like stretching is great.
And I would just add, and kind of John just made a good point. You know, we're all on Zoom all day. We're on meetings constantly. And so we keep our roundtables to an hour. We do them every Tuesday and Thursday. But we keep them to an hour, and we haven't seen many people drop off because of fatigue, but I feel like anything longer than that could be, you know, getting into the iffy zone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another interesting question just came through, and we didn't really touch on this at all, but how are you incorporating sponsorships into your virtual event so that it adds values to the ultimate attendee experience?
Nick Bennett, that's from my Nick Bennett at Impact.
Hey, Nick Bennett, the other Nick Bennett. But I love that question, because I think when right now at this point, like we're throwing all of our playbooks out, right? Like the things that used to work really well in person and the equal exchange of value we had in our ecosystem between host and sponsor and attendee, like all those rules are gone. So how are you guys thinking about activating and leveraging a sponsorship population to help ultimately increase the attendee experience?
So Nick actually does this for me for our events, and what he did here is exactly what I think we should be doing. He's asking our sponsors, what would be beneficial and valuable for them out of a virtual event. We could just say, yeah, if you join this, you'll get the lead list just like you would in person, but there's other opportunities that are going to be presented, and we have the chance to get creative with it. And also we have this opportunity to actually ask what would be something you want to get out of a virtual event. So I love that he's doing that. I think we all need to ask a little more.
Mm-hmm. I love that. All right, let's see what else we got. Wow, we have so much goodness in here. All right. Oh, this is actually a good one. So this one's talking around the professionalism of a virtual event. So I think there's sort of like a code of conduct, if you will, an expectation that's been set when you're in person. But how are you guys thinking about that maybe a little bit differently as you're moving to a virtual experience? And again, really trying to still consider like allowing somebody to bring their true self to it to feel most comfortable.
Well, I'll say I'm wearing pants, but I'm not wearing shoes. And I think that's the beauty of a virtual event is I put on eyeliner, I did my hair, I'm ready to be here, and I know I'm taking this seriously, but at the same time, I didn't have to figure out what shoes I can wear that won't hurt my feet after walking around all day. But I love the idea of bringing your professional self to these events and really committing not to just being there in your mental space, but in your physical space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing jeans for the first time in a month today. I know you guys can't even see it. I need to put myself.
Yeah, same.
I need to put myself in I wanted to feel cute. I put on cologne and no one's going to smell me either. So those are two things that I did today. But what I can say is I'm curious to see. Yeah.
Someone in the chat said everybody stand up.
Oh, that's amazing.
I can prove I get jeans on. I'll do it. Yeah, see? Actually, I'm not wearing jeans for a month until today for all you all. The professional question is such a good one. And I will say this. I think there's been I love this period of time where like everyone has just given us a permission pass to try and fail and be creative. And I think that in regards to the production quality of as we try new things with events. So, hey, we're going to do this new thing. If it doesn't go perfectly, and I think to John Krasinski and what he's done with like the Some Good News, and he hosted that, I don't know if people saw it, but this like virtual prom for seniors. And it was like a dad trying to operate Zoom, but like also bring in like live stream Chance the Rapper and like the Jonas Brothers. And it was just, it didn't go great in terms of the technology, but it was so much heart and creativity that went into it. So we have this period right now where people are very open to that. I'm wondering, even if we don't go back to virtual events, at some point I do think for us, and I can just only speak to this for myself, right? What we do believe that, creativity and little details do matter. So the polish you put a little bit onto like thinking about the music and the video, there's a fine line. So I think it's a fun time period right now to experiment with it, but I do think we'll see a trend back towards, an expectation that for companies and brands in these events to have a level of, I don't know if professionalism is for the word I'm looking for, but polished, you know what I mean? We've just been thoughtful. We've thought so much that we care, we're respectful, we want to relate, and we've gone to great lengths to make sure that you have a great experience. And so I think the professionalism or the quality will continue to go up as we perfect how to do these better.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So we're getting close on time, but any last minute recommendations the four of you might have on either products or solutions or concepts that you've found to really work that you want to recommend to all the other field marketers and event marketers on the line? Anything they got to check out?
I mean,
Alyce?
Yeah.
That was not planned.
No, I was just going to say, with our strategy, we look at different levels of the funnels. So like for our top of funnel, we are working with Alyce to help us with direct mail, which has been really helpful for us because we have in the past used trade shows as our top of funnel. So trying to figure out ways to get net new names and to kind of have that door opener has been really helpful for us. Also just looking at like different event platforms that your companies can use, whether it is Zoom or another webinar tool, just making sure that it's right for you and test, and making sure your use cases can map properly to the platform is really big.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. So one thing that's big for us is protect the base. So what can you do to expand your customer base? And so deal acceleration programs right now, besides virtual events, are also huge for us because quick win is just expanding those accounts with more seats and figuring out how to do that correctly.
I'd say our favorite tool right now, I mean, there's so many that we use, but we love Vidyard, and using the Chrome extension to create quick videos. I feel like it's a way better way to communicate when we're all sending a lot of emails, asking for a lot of things that are written out, and we're trying to bold the important points. Just recording a quick 1-minute video, it's really a game changer.
I mean, this has been the theme of everything that we've said, but add value and remember people are humans, and like the experience that collectively the world's going through right now, being able to relate to that, and in any way that you can as a brand or company to your prospects or customers, be diligent to keep adding value to them. That's always been true, but I think it's more true than ever right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to start thinking about events have always been an extension of our brand, but the importance that they're going to carry on our brand impression is going to be even greater. So we have to do the job well.
People will remember right now, in particular, if you show them you connect to them on a human level and you add value, they will remember you doing that right now in particular.
Yep. 100%.
In it for the long haul.
My mom always said people may not remember what they say, but they'll remember how you make them feel.
And on that,
it wasn't just my mom.
On that note.
that was a perfect segue. But seriously, thank you, Nick, Shannon, Stephanie, Ryan, for sharing your mind and sharing your time today with us. I know I personally took away a lot as we continue to refine and focus on what our event and field marketing strategies are going to look like in this new world. But thank you all again for lending your time. Thank you to everybody that dialed in. Hopefully today's discussion has left you thinking about different ways in which you can continue to infuse personal experience moments into all of your events that you host, whether they become in person or remain digital. And as a reminder, we're going to email out this session later on this week. So if you had to jump early. So thank you all again. We're going to take a short little break here, hop offline, and then at 1:30 today Eastern, 10:30 Pacific, we're going to be back on to talk about how personal experience is actually influencing the next generation of demand generation. So we're going to switch gears just a bit. But thank you all again, and stay safe, stay well, stay happy, and can't wait to see you in person.